This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the special board meeting of the West Basin Municipal Water District for January 14th, 2021 at 3:41. I'm calling this meeting to order. We do have a quorum, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Shields? We do have
Yes,
a quorum.
President Gray, we do have a quorum. Director Williams and Director Deere are on the line.
Great. Okay. Are there any presentations?
There are none.
All right, we'll go to the action calendar, please.
Okay, and no public comment either. Yeah, action calendar.
I didn't give public comments. No public comments?
No public comments.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, President Gray, members of the board, council, staff, members of the public. We, first of all, thank you for participating in the special board meeting, which was called together to deal with one item on the entire agenda on the action calendar, and it pertains to a long time project that we've been pursuing to increase water supply and upgrade generally the recycled water supply to the Marathon refinery down in Carson, that is fed from our regional plant down there, the Juanita Millender McDonald Carson Regional Water Quality Recycling Plant. No water quality, but that's what this is about. So what we're really, in a nutshell, we're going to have there's an accompanying PowerPoint, which would be good if you can bring it up. It was emailed to you, or it will be on the screen in front of you. But essentially, this project had two main components, has two main components, a TMVR and a CEMF, which will be explained to you here shortly. But the bottom line is that one component was largely financed through Marathon, and one is through West Basin with the assistance of grant and low interest loans. And the refinery at this point cannot proceed with their portion, but we can proceed with ours. But in order to avail itself, West Basin, of the excellent grant and financing for this particular project, we need to have some redesign, put out a new bid packet, get the bids back, and meet a state water resources control board. They're the people who are providing the funding, part of the funding, meet their deadline of June 1st of 2021. Okay, with that, if you can follow the presentation that Kevin is now going to present. Kevin.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, President Gray, members of the board. As Patrick mentioned, I'll be providing an update on our Juanita Millender McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant, as well as the subject Phase 2 expansion project. Jump into it. Before we dive too deep into the presentation, I'll just give a high-level overview of some of the things we'll discuss, what you can expect. I'll give a quick historical overview of our recycled water supply to the Carson refinery, now known as the Marathon refinery. Give a quick overview of the plant itself, talk about the details of the subject project, some of the events that have transpired over the past, and where the current project status stands today. I'll also review some of the recent events, notably that have led up to the timeliness of this board meeting, and ultimately inform the recommendations I'll provide at the end of the presentation. Furthermore, we'll review the project financing, some of those grants and low interest loans that Patrick mentioned. And then furthermore, we'll talk about the next steps and how the project can move forward with a custom engineered microfiltration system scope, and some ancillary improvements as well. And then to further support that recommendation, I'll give the board just a quick overview of our ongoing status of our MF operations out at the plant, talk about the benefits of the replacement, and ultimately provide a recommendation. Here you can see a map of our recycled water distribution system. On the left-hand side, you'll see where the Edward C. Little facility is located. You can also see the network of our distribution system. As Patrick mentioned earlier, there's over 100 miles that make up our distribution system now, which can easily be seen through the thin purple lines in the map. The Juanita Melender facility is located in the bottom right-hand corner, identified by the second star there. So our supply to the Carson refinery began with an original agreement with the Arco Products Company in 1997. Construction of the facility started shortly after, and our first recycled water delivery to the refinery occurred in February of 2000. To date, we've supplied them over 28 billion gallons of water, which is a huge achievement. And just to make sure everyone's familiar with the ownership changes, I'd like to give a brief overview. There's been quite a few name changes over the years. Mentioned the first one, Arco, and was the owner in 1997. In 1999, they were bought by BP, another refinery company. And then furthermore, in 2013, the refinery was acquired from BP by Tesoro. Tesoro then underwent a name change in 2017, operating under the name Endeavor. And then finally in 2018, and now the current owner, the Marathon Refinery, Marathon Petroleum Company is the current owner. High-level overview of the plant. Here's another map. The plant itself is located in the city of Carson, between Del Amo Boulevard and Carson Street along Wilmington Avenue. You can see the first star is where the project itself will take place at the plant. The second star is the location of our refinery. It's about a mile away south of the facility. And just to make sure board members are following on, I'm now on page 4 of the packet of the presentation. The facility itself is fed by a 42-inch pipeline from the Edward C. Little facility. That's about 14 miles away from the Carson plant. The influent water is our Title 22 water quality. That's tertiary filtered and disinfected recycled water. The original construction back in 2000 included 2 treatment trains to provide 2 different qualities of water. The first being a low pressure boiler feed water. That water is produced using microfiltration and reverse osmosis. The original treatment train built in 2000 was for a total of 5.18 million gallons per day. The second water quality that comes out of the facility is a nitrified water quality for industrial cooling tower applications. This nitrification process is done by a biological aerated filtration, commonly called our biophore units. And this treatment train was originally built with the capacity of 0.9 mgd. Here's a quick bird's eye view of the plant, so I can walk through where the work areas will be. Mainly, you can see where the reverse osmosis units and microfiltration units are currently located. The new location for the microfiltration system that is being proposed will be adjacent to the reverse osmosis units in that open plot of land there. This will easily facilitate the construction of a new system while the old system remains online, and then following the construction would provide us the ability to go ahead and decommission the old facility. So before I dive in too deep into the details of the subject project, I do want to note that West Basin's had pretty extensive efforts exploring the improvements of the Carson facility, going back all the way to 2008. For over a decade now, we've been studying improvements, not only to treatment technologies, but alternative treatment train orientations and configurations, as well as alternative means for optimizing both the MF and RO capacities. Ultimately, all of these efforts have led to the preferred design and construction of the subject Phase 2 expansion project. We kicked off the Phase 2 expansion project with the design phase in November 2015. The main scope of work, as Patrick highlighted earlier, included the installation of a 2.0 million gallon per day tertiary membrane bioreactor, which would supplement that nitrified water quality and build upon the biophore's current capacity. The financing for this side of the project was to be done through Marathon and supplemented by additional grants and loans. Then the second main component was the installation of a brand new open platformed custom engineered system microfiltration system with a firm capacity of 5.88 MGD, which would ultimately replace our aging microfiltration system out there now. This side of the project was to be paid for by West Basin and also supplemented by grants and low interest loans. I also do want to just note that there are a few ancillary improvements we're looking to make to the facility as well, mainly to improve the reliability and redundancy for both the Marathon refinery and any potential future customers that would receive water in the future. Those ancillary improvements include potable backup water connections to all 3 tanks. So we would construct a new potable water line that would feed all 3 intermittent tanks in the event of a disruption to the process at Edward C. Little facility. Furthermore, we'll be building a new carbon dioxide storage and dosing system, which will help improve some scaling that occurs over time on our Bio4 units. And additionally, there will be a small standby emergency generator to keep our RO product water pumps going in the event of a power outage. It has been noted that I think recently that we've been okay, but in the years leading up to this past year, power outages were quite frequent out at the facility. Our engineering firm for this engagement is Hazen and Sawyer. They're a professional engineering firm located out of downtown LA. Their home office is out of downtown LA. One nuance to this project, in parallel to the design, obviously the custom engineered system and the TMBR are highly technical systems, standalone systems. In parallel to the design, staff also engaged in 2 requests for proposals for the procurement of these specialized equipments. Ultimately, Westech was selected as the preferred vendor for the custom engineered microfiltration system, and a company called Xenon, which was a subsidiary of GE Water, was selected for the TMBR. Ultimately, what this approach to the project allows us to do is to, it provides West Basin a handful of benefits. Ultimately, upon awarding an eventual award to a construction contractor, this allows West Basin to assign these contracts or agreements, procurement agreements, to the contractor. This allows us to upfront establish contract pricing that will inform project financing and funding. Also allows us to pre-select the membrane vendor that's capable of providing the best overall system to West Basin. So this was a competitive and rigorous process that we went through. And then thirdly, it provides that mechanism for the pre-selected membrane vendor to be assigned to the general contractor and then become a part of the general contractor's contract. Quick review of the timeline of events that have led us to this point today and will inform our ultimate recommendation at the end of the meeting, at the end of the presentation. Starting in advance of the design phase, before we even jumped into the legwork, West Basin staff submitted a request to the State Water Resource Control Board, Department of Financial Assistance for funding requests for this project. We did that about 9 months out before the design phase. We kicked off the design in late 2015, continued the design through 2016, and ultimately received notice in 2017 from the Department of Financial Assistance that we did receive approval on our funding. We wrapped up the design in late 2017 and went out to bid in early 2018. We did receive 3 construction bids at the time. At the same time, staff was engaged in negotiations with Marathon for the funding of this project. Ultimately, shortly, I think almost a week right after we received the bids, we were informed that Marathon had acquired the Carson refinery from the Tesoro company, and ultimately they let us know that they would not be able to commit to the project within West Basin's 45-day required window per the public contracting code. At that time, I think it was in May of 2018, the board voted to reject all construction bids as within their right. In 2019, we resumed negotiations with Marathon, eventually even reaching final stages of negotiations. And then early in February 2020, you might have heard this in the news, There was quite a big explosion out at the refinery. Luckily, no one was injured, but it did cause quite the disruption to their process, and ultimately stalled the negotiations even further. And then just a month later, the COVID really fell into place here, and essentially the pandemic unfolded before us, further stalling things. The project's been on hold since. Staff's continued to engage with Marathon, but most recently, at the end of last year, we were notified by the State Water Resource Control Board that they were going to put forth a new deadline in order to receive that financial assistance, that we needed to award a construction contract and have one in hand for their approval by June 1st of 2021. Immediately after receiving that news, staff again engaged with Marathon and let them know of the new developments. Pretty quickly after there, Marathon did let staff know that they were going to be unable to participate in the TMBR component at this time due to the economic conditions surrounding the pandemic. I think this is quite a bit of information, so I'd like to just take a second here to pause and ask the board if there are any questions at this time.
All right, Kevin, thank you. Are there any questions, board members?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Director Deere, did you have questions at all right now?
Not now, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kevin, please continue.
Thank you. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the approved funding and state revolving funds that we did receive for the project, which included both scopes of work. I'll start here. The Prop 1 grant funding that we received was in the amount, a capped amount of roughly $8.08 million. The nuance to that grant funding is we're able to receive reimbursement for up to 35% of our costs during construction. This includes not only the contractor, but also our construction management services and engineering services during construction as well. And these can be reimbursed in real time. So as we receive the invoices, we can submit those to the State Water Resource Control Board for reimbursement. That 35% reimbursement is capped, like I said, at roughly just over $8 million. Secondly, the California State Water Resources Control Board Clean Water State Revolving Fund did provide a low interest loan in the amount of just over $15.7 million at 1% per annum over 25 years. This loan would need to be repaid following the completion of the project over a 25-year period. And then one aspect of the grant funding that I believe is still up for discussions is prior to the project, prior to the news of the TMBR component not moving forward, Cal Water had committed to providing a grant fund in the amount of $4 million to the project as well. Just a quick note before I proceed. The approved grant funding and low interest funding amounts will need to be reduced to reflect the revised scope. And I'll develop further along with how those discussions will play out in the timeline for that. So looking forward, the next steps and how we can proceed with the side of the project that will ultimately benefit West Basin. Staff is recommending that the district proceed with the construction of the CEMF portion of the project, including the other ancillary improvements. Two, namely, one, increase the water supply capacity and improve the overall reliability of the facility. Second, we want to take advantage of the favorable funding opportunities. We would need to meet that deadline of June 1st, having a construction contract in hand to take advantage of those. And then lastly, to ensure that the investments already made by West Basin are realized and seen through. Staff is really confident that this milestone can be achieved, but in order for that to be achieved, there are a few conditions that we need to meet. One, we need to direct the design engineer Hazen to expeditiously review the design drawings and ultimately delineate the two scopes of work and exclude the TMBR portions. So we need to have a standalone set of drawings and contract documents that only reflect the CEMF portion before we bid it. Secondly, we need to advertise that request for bids in March 2021. So that date informs how quick those revisions to the design package need to happen. And then thirdly, our procurement agreement with West Tech Engineering for the CEMF is updated. A quick note on the CEMF contract, that at the time West Basin signed that contract, that was December 2017. The agreement with West Tech included provisions for up to 3 years for us to issue the notice to fabricate. Obviously, if we were to issue a notice to fabricate around that June construction start date, we would fall outside of that 3-year window. So ultimately, staff did engage in negotiations with West Tech, and those negotiations ultimately netted in a cost savings to the district that I'll discuss in a bit. So here's a schedule looking forward, which would allow us to meet that June 1st milestone date and proceed with the project. Today we have a special board meeting, January 14th. Pending board approval, as soon as tomorrow, we would proceed with executing the amendments to both Hazen and West Tech for the changes in their agreements. And then over the next 2 months, we'll revise the design drawings and prepare the new bid package reflecting the CMF only scope. In March, we would advertise for bids once those design drawings had been updated. There would be a bid opening in April, probably mid-April. In the weeks following, leading up to the board meeting, we would perform those necessary reference checks and ensure we had a good contractor onboarded. And then in May, we would target the board cycle in May and provide a recommendation for a construction contract award should we receive favorable construction bids. Following approval from the board, we would submit a final budget package back to the State Water Resource Control Board to see what that revised financial package would look like. May, we would also execute the construction contract, and this would inform us meeting the milestone of having a construction contract in hand no later than June 1st, which would satisfy the State Water Resource Control Board requirements. Before we get into the recommendations, I just want to give an overview of where we stand with the current MF system. What we have out there, the first image on the left is the MEMCOR system that's currently in place. You can see it's made up of 9 standalone units there. It had an original design capacity I mentioned earlier of about 5.18 MGD. Each unit can do about 400 GPM, but as the system wears and membranes age, we've seen that drop as low as 200 GPM each. Probably the biggest downside of this MF system is the technology it uses. At the time it was installed, polypropylene membrane technology was the latest and greatest. It was the best you could buy. But since then, as technology's developed in many other arenas, it has as well in membrane technology. One kind of flaw I must say of the current system is that it has a high pressure backwashing sequence. It's at 90 psi, and most of these membrane modules and their housing components are made of plastic. So with a big thrust every 20 minutes over the duration of 25 years, it can cause pretty considerable damage. So we've had to do a considerable amount of membrane replacements and the thrust block replacements, which do require some downtime, but it is manageable. And as you would expect with an aging system, there has been a bit of decline in performance. So just a quick review of our capacities. We started in 2000 with a capacity of 5.18 MGD. Today, thank you to Suez's efforts and our operations optimization, we've been able to maintain MF production of just under 4 MGD with the help of a portable system as well. And looking forward with the future potential system, we would expect to see an increased total capacity of about 1.88 MGD. So just a quick review on the capacity side, we would see an increase in our total capacity. Not only would we restore the original design capacity, but we would be able to do so in operating in what we call an N+1 operations mode, which leaves us with a standalone redundant unit. One unit can remain offline at all times for maintenance purposes, and we would still be able to meet our capacity needs. It would also eliminate the need for our portable system that's currently out there, and would eliminate some of the downtime from failing system components. The membrane technology would get upgraded. As mentioned, the newest technology is, I try not to butcher this word, but polyvinylidene fluoride, better known as PVDF. This is one of the better membrane technologies out there. It uses sodium hypochlorite to clean. Contrary, the polypropylene uses a proprietary cleaning agent. With sodium hypochlorite, we'll get much better long-term performance out of our membranes. And then furthermore, having an open platform, custom engineered system, it allows the system to be fitted with up to 6 different membranes. Kind of the industry standard when building a microfiltration system at any water recycling facility is that the entire system is built around one selected membrane. And then for the duration of that lifetime, for that system, you're stuck with that one membrane. So building an open platform system would allow West Basin to competitively bid these membranes when replacement is required. Alrighty, so before I read the recommendations for today, I'll just give a quick overview again of those conditions that need to be met in order to meet the State Water Resources Control Board deadline. The first is that Hazen's directed to expeditiously revise the bid packages to eliminate the TMBR portions of the work. Secondly, that the request for bid is advertised in March 2021. And then finally, that the procurement agreement with West Tech is amended to eliminate or to change that the time frame for which the notice to fabricate can be issued. So with that, I'll read the recommendations. The first is that the board authorize the general manager to proceed with the project for the CMF system and other ancillary improvements. Second is that the board authorized the general manager to amend the professional services agreement W2618 with Hazen and Sawyer in the amount of $352,161 plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed contract amount of $2,948,026.40. And thirdly, that the board authorize the general manager to amend the vendor procurement agreement W2754 with West Tech Engineering to remove the CPI cost adjustment provision, accept the product material changes, and amend the vendor procurement agreement in the amount of $127,753.65 for a revised agreement value of $4,748,045.43, which is within the total already approved not to exceed contract amount of $5,055,886.99 previously approved by the board. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Are there any questions from board members?
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes, Director.
that sounds like a tall order. And I just want to ask, are there any viable alternatives to what we're doing here?
Well, Director Williams, if I may answer that, you say viable alternatives. Most of this already has been approved by the board. The real issue here is the substantial grant funding that will go away if we don't meet the deadline, and it's work that we have to do anyway. And if we didn't have the grant funding, we'd just be paying more out of West Basin's pocket. So I guess that's a way of saying to you that there's always options, but they're going to be more expensive, and we lose really good funding opportunity that we have currently, and we need to do the work. It's
Okay, so there is no viable option.
not a better option than this, no.
Okay, then what is the consequence of us failing to meet the calendar, the schedule rather?
That would involve losing, like I said, close to $4 million in grant money and access to low interest loan money at 1% that's already approved. up to probably $7 or $8 million. So if we don't proceed, we stand to lose that. And the State Water Resource Control Board, we've talked to them extensively, and they sent us a letter, so there's no more delays on this. You either move forward or we're pulling financing. So that would be the big loss. And then if we didn't get that, we move ahead, we would have to find another source. When grant funding, remember, is essentially free money. It's very hard to come by these in this kind of amount. So it would not be good, especially with us losing standby charge and potentially shortly. So.
Okay, my last question is, do we have to, well, what is our permit requirement for the city of Carson?
Well, permitting requirement, I mean, we're largely self-permitting. I don't know, Barkev, if there's any permitting issues potentially here.
From an environmental side, I think it's the negative declaration, environmental documentation was prepared for the project a while back, and it's within our site, so there's no encroachment permits in that sense. Our operations manager, Uzi Daniel, Uzi, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much. So as far as permitting, environmental permitting, we already conducted CEQA some time ago. There shouldn't be a need for refreshing that document, but we will check into that. As a part of this process early on, our compliance team was involved in evaluating the different environmental permits. And in fact, through that process is where we realized there would be an update to AQMD permits. And that's why we informed the board a few months ago that we have already engaged in some of the AQMD permits for the site. As far as city permits, Director, Carson has some lid requirements, stormwater requirements. A lot of cities do now. And we also, as best management practice, do try to design for those. So we are putting those in. And some of the, as a self-permitting, as Patrick described, self-approving and self-permitting agency, we often do still, as a courtesy, work with the cities for any necessary permits to ensure that they will be good in the future if we did any kind of changes at the sites. And those were all evaluated as part of the initial program and will be looked at again with our team as we move forward.
Well, I hope so. You know, Carson has new leadership now, and I hope we will be good neighbors in with this project, because that's an area that was very sensitive to environmental projects, and especially to the south there, where they had the trucking container cleaning process over there. I know that's been gone a while, but we're going to be doing quite a bit real soon there. So I just want to make sure that we are going to be good neighbors and not have them say that we're bad neighbors. That's all. Well, thank you very much.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for those comments. And I would add that we are doing considerable construction work at that site currently, and working close with the brake tank that Veronica presented earlier. Okay. Gloria?
Director Deere, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Just a few comments, and I don't know if you consider them questions, but first of all, I was just kind of looking at the advantage of moving forward with this project. And obviously, you know, it is to increase water supply capacity and improve reliability at the Juanita McDonald satellite plant, which is what, you know, is very important to us. As well as the grant funding, that's very important. And I really want to commend the staff, the GM and staff, because if they had not, and I'm very much aware of some of the activities that have happened before we got to this point. And I know the general manager and staff worked very diligently with the State Water Board and whomever else to make sure that those at least part of those grant funds would still be available. That's very important because grant fund implies the free funds, right? And we've already made an investment. This feedback, I think, is there an echo in my comment? Hello?
No, but I do echo your comments. I appreciate them.
Yeah, but, and so we've already made the investment, and I know it's a very complicated project, and I want to commend Kevin for explaining it because it is very, very complicated. So thank you, Kevin, for the explanation of the project presentation today. I do think we should move forward with it because it involves a very low interest rate loan. We've already invested in the project. We still have available grant funds due to the efforts of our GM and staff, and we are all about making sure we do have a adequate supply of recycled water and quality water. So with that, I just want to make those comments before the board considers it. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
President Gray.
All right, anything else from the board regarding that, the general manager?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
was that
yes,
a motion?
yes, I'll make the motion.
Well, then I'll second the motion because this project is consistent with our mission and vision.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Any further discussion on the project? And Steve, all the legalities or whatever have been taken care of relative to this project because it seems very complicated.
Well, yes, it will involve some more legal work. We have some contracts to amend, and we have to confirm with the state board. But there will be some legal work to do. But there's nothing legally that prevents the district from moving forward in this manner.
Okay, great. All right, and the schedule I know involved quite a lot, Mr. Shields, and if there's any issue that impacts the schedule, you will make sure you notify the board as we move forward, correct?
Yes, correct, President Gray. That's a very, very good point. And we have had legal involvement in this. It is complicated. The schedule is very tight between now and July 1 to make sure that we retain the grant funds. That's the key thing here. It's a project we have to do. The board's already voted on it many times. The only reason it hasn't been completed is, of course, because of the many takeovers and changes of ownership and all the way through COVID. But now we can go on this portion. So I will definitely update the board as we go through the process of confirming that we have these funds in the next several months.
Great. All right, well, thank you, Staff Barkev and Uzi and everyone that was involved in this project. So if there's no further discussion, and we do have a motion in this second, we will now vote on it. Director Williams, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Deere, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Director Gray votes yes. So the motion does pass. And so, Patrick, is there any other item?
President Gray, no, that concludes the 5A, and on our information calendar today, we do not have anything.
Okay, all right. No closed session, Steve?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. And director's comments, Director Deere?
Just do we have another committee meeting tomorrow?
What? Oh, tomorrow, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
What time?
Fine. At 11:30.
11:30, Director Deere, yeah, Finance and Admin.
Yeah.
Okay. And Director Williams, any comments?
No, thank you.
All right. All right, my comments is again, thank you to staff. You continue to do outstanding work, and thank you very much, GM and staff. And so with that, and I believe Craig is still on the phone. Thank you for always representing the community on the phone at our meeting. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Be safe, everyone. Thank you.